Hey, ladies. Thanks for being here. Dr. Brandy Victory, the host of the Ultimate Biohack for Women. I'm excited to bring you back Miss Robyn Maitland with Microbiome Labs. We spoke last month. Gosh, I guess it was last month, depending on when this one gets actually published. But we talked about spore-based probiotics and the benefit of that, and how a lot of probiotics just really don't do the job, and why the spore-based probiotics are so important. And today we're going to take it to a whole new area. We're going to actually talk about the immune system and how to boost your immune system and help prevent yourself from getting sick as we come into cold season, if you will, in the winter. And yeah, it's a really great conversation. I'm learning so much from you, Robyn. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be able to connect with you anytime. I love working with you, and I love that you spread the message. And thank you for setting an intention before everyone joined today to just set the tone. I think that's amazing. And then I'm also really glad to come back because you can talk about these things. I get to share about this all the time. So that's how I can retain it, but it does take a little bit of regurgitation to be able to get some footing around this. And so I just think that as we were discussing, what is pertinent to now? What is going on? And obviously, again, you were saying we're entering this cold season, the winter's coming. For me being in the field and working with a lot of people, the big conversation is, how do we support our immune systems? Always, how do we heal the gut? Because the gut is connected to so many things. And interestingly enough, the gut, a lot of times people think is just going to be digestive issues, but we've seen that by healing the gut, we see improvement with the gut-brain connection. So you have a lot of improvement with the mental health piece and mood and sleeplessness. We see skin conditions improve, a lot of autoimmune people we work with. And then I call it the catch-all basket, which is everything from SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, to UTIs, to parasites. So it stems back to the gut. But on top of that, about 70% of our immune system comes from the gut. So if you consider that around 70 million people have gut issues, and many people have what's called leaky gut, for anybody who doesn't fully know that, little perforations in the gut lining caused by environment, toxicity, food, stress, medication, et cetera, that then can cause these tears in the gut, and then things will leak into the body responds, causing an inflammatory response and food sensitivities and all kinds of goodies, but that's where a lot of inflammation then leads to dis-ease. So we want to always talk about, how do we improve gut health and heal the gut, but then also now understanding more about our immune system. And what people are trying to figure out is, okay, how do I ramp up my immune system? Maybe people are recovering from getting sick. They just are trying to dodge getting sick. But I think now more than ever, and we're also entering the season where people are going to be indulging in more food that they normally wouldn't be indulging in, cheating. Maybe, I have many things in my health home to clean up. I'm not the poster child of perfect eating, but it's very tempting on top of that to indulge. So all of these things reinforce coming back to, okay, what can we do to heal the gut and also improve that immune system and get ready? So we will kick off with some products.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. I love it. There's so much here. So yeah, let's just drop in.
Okay, so what I wanted to talk about, there's two different things I'll be discussing. The first piece is, like last time when we talked, for anybody who's new to this conversation, microbiomelabs.com is a great place to go. You can check out our website. We have maybe 25 products. We specialize in healing the gut, restorative gut products. So we do have a Megaspore Biotic, that's our flagship probiotic. We work with spore-based probiotics, or bacteria that are very different than just a traditional bacteria. The spore is a tough outer coating. It's called the endospore. It's like a seed. And we have basically bacteria that have been around for millions of years. They're highly resilient. They're highly intelligent. They're very living creatures. And so many people are sort of tried and true is the Megaspore Biotic. It's the entry point. And when you take the spores, they reside in the body for some time. They will actually address whatever might be in your gut. We never know who's in there. They come out of spore form, that tough outer coating that protects them. They release healing agents into the environment, and their aim is ultimately whomever's in your gut. We never know what critters are on board, pathogens, E. coli, parasites, what have you. You could be a clean eater, but travel a lot more, have more pets than the next guy, and have more parasites. So the main objective is, most of the time we address the gut by introducing a product like Megaspore, and the spores will break down bugs, start to recondition the gut and heal the gut from leaky gut, endotoxemia issues, and then in turn we start to see beneficial keystone species. They're called keystone strains, like Akkermansia and bifido, those guys begin to flourish and go wild. So we have other products that then come in to feed and target those guys. So that was our first conversation last time, was really just understanding more about spores and healing the gut. So what I want to talk about today is the Megaspore Biotic being the flagship probiotic, having 5 different bacillus bacteria at 4 billion units. So 4 billion of those 5 different creatures combined. That's our flagship product. But we do have a product that I want to touch on today, and I like to do my show and tell with visuals. It's called HU58. And instead of having 5 different bacteria, we take one very potent strain. It's called the Bacillus subtilis. And we use this guy in a lot of our formulations. And we put this bacteria in its own product called HU58 at 10 billion units. So just one very potent spore or strain, just a lot more of it. And this particular bacteria, when it's in our system and it encounters different pathogens or bugs, our spores will come out of spore form. So they just, like I picture, they kind of flower. They've got the tough outer coating. But when they sense that there's something in the mix that they need to address, they'll come out of spore form. And this Bacillus subtilis, one of the key features, it begins to release natural antibiotics into the environment. So it will actually, I was told, this is pretty interesting, it can encircle a pathogenic bacteria. This is their intelligence. It will come out of spore form, start to release natural healing agents into the environment to start cleaning it up. And its aim is to break down that bug. But also the Bacillus subtilis HU58 can reduce ammonia by up to 30% in the body, which is interesting because I heard that, when parasites die off, they actually can release ammonia. And I also was told recently that H. pylori, which is a bacteria that we all have, but if it becomes overgrown, it can become a problem for some people. I was told that that can actually release ammonia to protect itself.
Yeah.
So very interesting. So the Bacillus subtilis breaks down pathogenic bacteria, bad guys, reduces ammonia in the body, but it upregulates your killer T cells. And that's why we're going to talk about that today with the immune piece, because it's like we all need to ramp up our immune system, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
So this guy,
can I pause you for just a second? Could you talk to people a little bit about what killer T cells do?
Well, you actually may know more than I do. I know that it's related to the immune function. I mean, ultimately what we do with this particular Bacillus subtilis strain, when we recommend layering it in, we typically, when people have SIBO, so that's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, if they have C. diff, which a lot of times people pick up a bug and their body might have loose stools or diarrhea, and that's causing a lot of discomfort. And then also when people have heavier parasitic activity, so it's not a specific anti-parasitic, but when we all have parasites, we all have critters, we all have candida, we're petri dishes, but we just don't need these things being overgrown, and they become a problem. So an overgrowth of parasites, for instance, typically when there's an infection or there's something that's a chronic infection that just won't resolve, ramping up the killer T cells. I'm not a scientist. I don't know the perfect function of how they do all of what they do, but I know it's ramping up your immune system in a way so that it can activate that so we can fight infection in the body.
Yes.
Ultimately.
Yes.
So this is when we layer this guy in, is also if you're coming off of antibiotics, so post-antibiotic recovery, we'll oftentimes add in some Megaspore, and we'll start there to start to recondition and heal the gut. But then we might also add a layer of the big guns to get in there to help really rebuild the gut and help with anything that has been infectious for healing.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it just makes sense, right? That we would like to, if we're wanting to avoid getting sick, however that could happen, it just makes sense that we might want to ramp up our immunity and our killer T cells so that we've got like a whole army of little guys in there ready to take control, and so we're more protected.
Yes, absolutely. And I know, so for me, I'm not saying it's an anti-parasitic because there's parasitic cleanses out there. I take Megaspore Biotic one day because it has 5 different bacteria and it really helps with reconditioning the gut. But then I'll layer in the HU58. I toggle back and forth personally. I want to ramp up my immune system, but also I'm the cat box cleaner in the house. We know that cats have parasites. And so I just like to keep that in check. Again, our stance is not to eradicate everything. We're not trying to do a whole kill protocol or cleanse everybody out, because we all have these different types of creatures in our body, and many of them serve really good purposes. But we know if candida is overgrown, you can have increased sugar cravings or vaginitis, or so they can become problematic if they're just too abundant. So what we're trying to do is heal the gut, clean up the environment, create an inhospitable environment. Things that are overgrown naturally begin to die off. And we're trying to heal the gut environment at the same time, and then recalibrate the body. And when the body's balanced, it does its own amazing job
Mm.
going in and healing things, right? So we don't have to get in there and be like, let's just like nuke everybody out of here. They've got time and place and space to do their job, but they get a little overrun sometimes.
Yeah, I love that actually. I was talking to my naturopath colleague friend, and she's helping with me with my mold stuff, and then the question arises with everyone I have this conversation with is, oh, maybe you have a co-infection, so I'm like, okay, maybe I should test for the co-infections. But, honestly, it's like, really expensive to do all, like my cost is really expensive to do all those tests. And I'm like, is this necessary? And so as I was talking to her, this was just yesterday, the day before, she was like, here's the thing, and this is her speaking, not me, when she works with people with mold and clears the mold and improves the gut and that beefs up the immune system, then the immune system takes care of any underlying, typically any underlying co-infections that may be there. And I was like, oh yeah, duh, that totally makes sense. So, it was real grounding to me to come back to remembering, in all the conversations we've had about gut and, which is what I know, that, oh yeah, I'm doing the right thing. I don't have to go overboard here. I'm taking care of my gut. I've been taking these, and I'm just going to say this. I know we talked a little bit about this before, but I just want to talk about the Microspore Biotic. Let's see, I'm doing Microspore Biotic and the Megamucosa right now. Mm-hmm. Oh, and the K27 Biomfx or something like that. I just started. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I saw that it improves ATP production of energy up to 50%. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And it supports the bone health, and it supports cardiovascular, like softening of the cardiovascular tissue. I'm like, yeah, give me all of that. So, but since I've been doing that, as we had talked about before, I got re-exposed to mold last week, and that was my first re-exposure. I never have had that before. Like, this is kind of all a new thing for me. Mm-hmm. But prior to that, when I came home, I looked at my little calendar where I track my health, and I realized I had 3 weeks of being completely pain-free, of not having fatigue, of not having snot, of not having headaches, of not having all these things. And I absolutely believe it's because I've been now taking that product package that I just spoke of, and it's healing my gut.
It's amazing, and thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry also too for like that re-exposure piece. And I know that before we hopped on, we're going to talk about our Megamucosa product because it has Mega IgG in it. Mm-hmm. And the last training, we were talking about the Mega IgG 2000 capsules. I do have to just mention that because you and I were just discussing increasing that IgG for that re-exposure. Mega IgG, because I'm going to segue it into our Megamucosa because it's part of what helps to rebuild the gut. We do have a product called Mega IgG 2000, which is my very, very favorite. And now you and I were talking about, you've already been taking it. We're going to increase that dosing some now that you've had exposure. These are bovine serum derived immunoglobulins. So it is not your vegan friendly product. It comes from bovine serum, but we don't have dairy in our IgGs. So some on the market does. The dairy-free, lactose, casein, whey-free people love our IgG. But the capsules on their own have a higher milligram count. And then in a moment, I'm going to talk about our Megamucosa product, which you said you're taking, and it has some of the IgG in it with other ingredients. But in general, that IgG will help to neutralize and bind up and expel toxins. And we live in a very toxic world. We talked about that last time. It's not to get depressing, but we are sort of in this uphill battle every day, and you do the very best you can. And so I always start people, the way that IgG works is that in general, if you start Megaspore, and then the spores are in there breaking down bugs and healing the gut, some people in the first few days, or maybe even with the HE58, because it is spore-based, they may have some things dying off that cause a little extra gas, bloating, loose stools. That's called a detox or die-off phase. That's very common. It doesn't happen with everyone. Again, we don't know what's in the gut. Your microbiome is unique to you like a snowflake. We don't know who's in there. But certainly we all have a whole mix of things. So some people, we do recommend introducing our spores slowly because they are very potent. They clean and sterilize the environment. Different things will die off, and it's not uncommon if you have a little detox symptom. So if those symptoms happen, they're typically benign, but that's a time I always add in some IgG. As things are dying off, let's gather those guys up and help to expel that. But on top of that, the IgG can also just start to rebuild the gut. Now we have a gut lining that lines our intestines. It's called the Mucosal Gut Barrier, and it's a filter, and it should be really nice and thick and velvety. But because of environment, glyphosate, stress, all the goodies, it starts to wear thin for a lot of people. We want to increase that, to thicken that up, rebuild the gut lining, the mucosal gut barrier, because again, that helps with digestion, but that's also linked to our immune system. And so that's an imperative thing to do. So the IgG in the capsules by itself is great to add in when people have eaten junky that day. They maybe have burger, fried, cheater day. Take your Megaspore, add in some IgG. If you happen to have C. diff, diarrhea, loose stools, maybe you've traveled, you've been in the hospital, a medication's causing that, you picked up a bug, your body's trying to flush something out. If you're doing a candida cleanse, if you're having a skin rash, there's so many times that the body's trying to detox something that I just say IgG all day. So our suggested dose for the Mega IgG is 2 caps 2 times a day. So I start with 2 caps for a few days. Typically people do awesome with it, and then I'll increase it to 2 times a day. So 4 caps a day is 2 grams. That's our suggested dose. And I take that regularly. I don't remember to take supplements every day, but I take it regularly because we're always exposed to toxins. I also love food. I come from a family of people who are chefs and brewers, and I eat a lot of stuff.
Oh, I love food too.
I love food. But if I'm going to indulge, then I definitely increase my IgG. And then that's the segue into what you and I are talking about: mold exposure, autoimmune patients, Lyme, Crohn's. We can do increased doses of the IgG, and then we'll talk about adding in some megamucosa as well for short term to really get in there and bind up toxins and help rebuild the gut. So I'm so excited that you're a walking, sort of your testimonial is like, hey, I realized I wasn't jotting things down, and I track my symptoms and how I'm feeling. That means I'm making progress and I'm healing. And then I just bumped into something that kind of set me back. So now I guess the only upside to that is that we can see how we can ramp up and how that affects you, because you're a healer and you get to go tell other people about that.
Thank you for that.
I mean,
People don't know unless you've been there what it's like to have constant chronic pain in your body. And since I had COVID, it initiated this underlying mold toxicity thing that I had going on. And I believe this is why I became a long hauler, because I'm the healthiest person I know outside of my boyfriend. Okay. So, it just doesn't make sense. And and I got that in November. And so to have pain-free, 3 pain-free weeks in a row in September, I haven't been pain-free since November. There was a point when I got through, like, the COVID was over probably in 6 to 8 weeks. And then I did long hauler syndrome for about 6 months. But then after that, I think what happened in my head was I was like, look, this is your life. Get used to it. This is the way it is. And there's a lot of things I did to navigate that, but I think I just kind of got used to it, if you will. And I didn't realize I was in so much pain. And so to actually look back on my calendar and go, wow, I literally was pain-free for 3 weeks, and it's been almost a year since I've been out of pain. That's substantial.
It's amazing. And it's funny you say that, because I've had like 2 minor things going on right now that are causing pain. And I was telling a friend that yesterday. It's like an arm issue and something on my back. And it's just, something that will resolve, I'm sure. But the arm thing's been like 2-3 months. And I'm like, okay, is it how I'm typing? Is it whatever? My rotator cuff, what did I do? But I was just telling a friend yesterday, I said, living with chronic pain, living with chronic issues, you kind of become used to them, but like, God bless people who have that all the time. And again, the leaky gut piece, with things leaking into the body and the body responding, causing inflammation. That's why when we improve leaky gut, we do start to see improvement with even like rheumatoid arthritis. Now, we're not making claims, but these are just some of the things we've seen with people. So it just really runs the gamut that goes back to the gut. And I think that, again, I'm going to be excited to see as you continue on your journey. Now, what you were saying, the Megaspore Biotic is the reconditioner, breaks down bugs and then heals the gut environment, ramps up keystone good guys. The Megapre then comes in, it's a powder or capsule form to feed those good guys. They're important for gut health and immune function. And then the Megamucosa comes in to rebuild that gut lining. So we're going to talk about the mucosa now. That is what we call our total gut restoration protocol for people who are new or refresher. And we do recommend a minimum of 3 months on these products. Dr. Brandy can always design this and help guide you with this. But some people may stay on it for 6 months. It's not meant to be boxed into, you do just 3 months. but we like to say at least 3 months to give it a fair shake and see how people heal. But some antibiotics, which so many people are on, they can wreak havoc for up to 2 years on the body. So some people might want to be on this TGR, we call it the total gut restoration system, for 3 months or 6 months or for a year or two. Some people might get great healing after a few months and just drop down to a little maintenance schedule, which would be like 1 or 2 days a week of Megaspore and 1 scoop of pre-mucosa after you've gotten desired results. If you're willing to do a little maintenance schedule, that's most ideal. And I love, people will say, well, I feel so much better. I've done Megaspore for 6 months or the total gut for 3 or 6 months. I'm good now, right? And I'd love to say, yes, you've graduated. I'd love to say, everybody's cool. But if people are willing to do a little maintenance dosing and they can afford it, which I've been on the healing journey before, when you're trying to pick and choose what you can afford that week, I get it. But if you are able to do a little maintenance schedule after you do some healing, it's most ideal, because unfortunately we do get rebombarded every day. So you can eat clean but still be exposed to gluten, or you could eat organic but still be exposed to glyphosates. Then COVID comes and our stress levels go through the roof. There's just a lot of things that tax us. Even animals, they're thrown on medication. That's why we have a phytospore. We have a product that helps leaky gut with animals.
Awesome.
I know. So I have to come back again, which is always really fun to talk about more stuff with you.
Yeah.
But that's, at the end of the day, that is the thing. And again, it's not to be doomsday, but we do have a lot of things that re-impact us every day. So I'm excited that you have several months under your belt. You were seeing the benefit. You bumped into something now that is a setback, and you're like, okay, I got to recalibrate. And then we'll get to see, by increasing your IgG and we'll talk about the mucosa combo and how you're going to be faring in the next few months once you can move through this patch.
Yes, thank you very much. Can we kind of like chat about something real quick? Something that's coming to mind that I think I can kind of hear the brains clicking of our listeners right now. And they're like, okay, wait a minute, because I have this too. Honestly, before I got mold, I'm from Texas and then I moved to the West Coast. I lived on the beach. I had on the beach, like I pull my shoes out of my closet and there'd be mold on them. I wipe them off, like I've been around mold all my life. And I have always had the attitude that, oh, what's the big deal? Mold is everywhere. That was like, come on, what's the big deal? And why is everybody suddenly sick of it? Why is it suddenly, and gluten thing has been going on now, but for a little while, but it suddenly became a gluten thing. And then it suddenly became a mold thing. Then it suddenly became all these things, right? Co-infections. And I was talking to someone about this, and the point was brought up that, gosh, we're in such a toxic world and we have such bad gut health that we're just affected by everything. How do you feel about that?
Well, I will tell you, so I worked with a company previously that was very focused on educating on pesticide, like supporting farmers in India, and GMOs and pesticides impacting small family farmers and the impact on the communities. And so I learned a lot more about just the environmental, glyphosates and things that are sprayed on foods, and I used to be somebody who was in the health industry for 20 years. And several years ago, before this one company I worked with, I would be like, okay, I'm going to buy all organic at the store as much as I can. But these avocados and bananas, they have a hard casing, they're not going to absorb toxins like a strawberry would.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand the impact on the environment and the impact on the farmers and the land, and the trickle down effect is like, why organic as much as you can and why non-GMO as much as you can, that there's a cascade effect. So the environment piece, I will tell you, what do I think about that? I mean, obviously there's so many things that, like you said, the gluten conversation has been big. The non-GMO conversation, was like kind of a big topic for a while. And then yes, the mold conversation. I grew up in Florida. Everything was like creepy crawly and growing, and you always could, it was like moisture, everything. And then I lived in Chicago for a long time, where it's like such a different climate than Florida, but there's so much humidity and there's a lot of mold in places. I had mold exposure. I did muscle testing around that did verify that, and I always sensed that. So that manifested for me, like whenever I get sick, I get this sort of like barking cough. And, some of it was some like sort of fungal overgrowth stuff. So when I moved to Colorado, I've been here twice in my life, 20 years ago and back 7. When I moved here, I was like, before I was with Microbiome Labs and learning about the gut piece, I was living in an apartment and it was only a year old. And because the land was shifting, there was causing cracks in the stucco, and they were already checking and remediating and making sure there was no moisture.
Wow.
And I was stunned. This was just a couple of years ago. I've been with Microbiome for 3 years. This is about 4 years ago. And I was like, mold in Colorado, it's the driest place ever. Like, what are we talking about here? And
Right.
working with practitioners all day, it is one of the topics. And so I think what's interesting is we have a change of seasons here. We have some older structures. I mean, obviously that's how it impacts a lot of homes. People get leaks. So there's ways that the mold thing happens. I think they say that we're all exposed to mold. There's mold spores everywhere. My suspicion more than anything is, there's some people who get very sick from it and other people who don't. Just
Yeah.
like some people, can eat sugar like crazy. They're not going to get a candida overgrowth,
Yeah.
but I do think that it does go back to this conversation of your gut health. I think if your gut is compromised, you may have more of a propensity, and this is my suspicion, to be sensitive to mold. Whereas the next person in the home, if their gut health, or someone for instance, if their gut health is not as compromised, I mean, they may not be as sensitive, right? So
Yeah.
I personally just think, again, it goes back to really keeping your gut in check. I think that also has to do with when people are getting hit with viruses and things this year, preparing for different ways that they can, I've been saying this, nobody wants COVID. If you had COVID, if you're long hauling, if you're preparing for the shot, getting the second shot, don't want the shot. It's a very personal decision, in my opinion. It's not a black or white issue, but
No.
heal the gut, heal the gut, heal the gut. Because if you are trying to recover, if you're trying to prevent and you're trying to recover, you're trying to prepare, or you're trying to come down off of something and say, well, how do I rebuild my cells and detox, whatever, heal the gut all day. So it's a little bit long-winded, but that's my response to that. I mean, I'm shocked by the amount of mold stuff. Mold, SIBO, parasites, Lyme, almost, and Candida are the hot topics every day around here.
Yeah.
And then we all seem to have one of them or more of them. They're very related, but it goes back to leaky gut. And if you heal the gut and 70% of your immune system's there, heal the gut, you're going to be more equipped to fight infection. Heal the gut, it's going to help your cause when you're recovering. Heal the gut, as you're repairing. And if
Yeah.
also the new one that we'll have to come back and talk again is that the gut bacteria, the bacteria in your gut also produces 95% of your serotonin. So
Yes.
think about this. Why are people, there's a lot of mood issues, anxiety, depression. We just launched Zen Biome Cope, Zen Biome Sleep, which will have to be another chat. But the topic around here now, this lately at Microbiome Labs, is on the psychobiome. If you have all this bacteria producing the majority of this feel good thing in your body, but your gut is compromised, that's not going to help the cause if people are not sleeping and they're stressed. We're all a little mental right now too, because the world has been flipped upside down. So for me, it's just like, if it's a mold issue, an immune boosting thing, a recovery piece, your mental health, I mean, all of these things are coming into play, especially right now. We're very blessed in Colorado, because we can be outside almost every day of the year. I love Chicago, but it was tough being in darker, inside for months.
Yeah.
And that, so the more you can get outside, you can diversify and you can play and hug people and hug your pets and increase that diversity is also very imperative for your immune system. But
Yeah.
I think in general, we're entering the next winter season, which a lot of people are concerned about. What's going to happen when we're more isolated away from people? How do we keep that immune system up? And so green leafy vegetables, hands in the dirt. I know people that are like, I let my dogs jump in bed with me. Animals bring microbes in from outside on their nose and fur. We exchange with them. It helps support our microbiome.
Yeah.
If you're lucky to hug somebody, not everyone has someone in proximity, and the right types of probiotics, like an HU58 that ramps the immune system, a spore-based probiotic like Megaspore, HU58 for sure, living creatures that have been studied to actually be alive, that not dead bacteria that are going to heal the gut. So it's all interconnected for me.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think what's really important as a takeaway here is that, I mean, I know in my practice, and not everybody comes to me for digestive issues. They come to me for other things, autoimmunity, headaches, pain, sleeplessness, all different kinds of things. And I would say, I don't know, 99% of the time, and I don't think that's an exaggeration, 99% have a gut issue. And I would say, I don't know, at least 25% of those people at least would tell me they didn't think they had a gut issue. That you can have gut dysfunction, leaky gut, without having trouble pooing.
Oh, I mean, it's very interesting. We have done research. We're very big on science and research and data. Our founder, Kiran Krishnan, is a microbiologist and virologist. Dr. Tom Bain is a functional medicine chiropractor, and they invest a lot into research. We have a lot of studies published. we have researched Megaspore with ulcerative colitis, with IBS, with leaky gut, and helping improve leaky gut by 60% in 30 days with Megaspore. We've looked at diverticulitis. But what's interesting is when I first started a couple years ago, we're growing exponentially. We're about 8 years old. We had these chat rooms running with science. We can ask science questions as a team. And we were a smaller company even a couple years ago. We've just been blowing up. But our clinical, someone from the clinical team and the founders, they were the ones in the chat rooms answering. And now we have a more expanded clinical team. But it was interesting because I remember, like, we as a team would come and we would say, okay, I've got this person who's got irritable bowel syndrome, or what would we do for this kind of allergy? Or what about this thing? What about da? And certainly we have maybe 25 products. I jokingly say it's like Mexican food. It's a lot of the same ingredients. Once you get the footing on the basics, it's just like you might detox first, then do a gut rebuild with Megaspore. You might address the diarrhea with Restore Flora and then bring in the Megaspore. So I jokingly say it's kind of just the arrangement of the products once you get some of the basics. Is it a taco, a chalupa, a burrito? What are we doing here today? But it goes back to one of our founders was like, you guys, at the end of the day, don't reinvent the wheel. Heal the gut, heal the gut, heal the gut. Meaning you might do an IgG detox, like I said, and then bring in Megaspore, or you might start with Megaspore first and then bring something else in. There's not really right or wrong order. There might be something that's more advantageous based on the case, but it goes back to, like you say, a lot of people don't even know they have gut issues. They always correlate that with like diarrhea or some other digestive issue. But it's like, what about all the acne on the face? What about the rosacea? What about the fact that they're not sleeping? Whatever it may be. And so it's just really funny to me. I used to kind of look in this chat room and they would do the best trying to design protocols, but then they would a lot of times just be like, you don't have to overcomplicate this, whether it's boosting the immune system, like we just said, or you're addressing a mold toxicity issue, or you're trying to help with that autoimmune patient. Heal the gut, heal the gut, heal the gut.
I love it. Yeah. Whether you think you have a gut issue or not, you probably have a gut issue. So heal your gut.
Yes. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned last time I had an earache months ago and I was like, is this related to the gut in some capacity? Like, I mean, it went away, but I thought, everything to me seems like it is now.
For sure.
So the HU58 is one that I highly recommend. And I was just thinking, again, in general, we will layer that HU58 if there's chronic gut infections that won't resolve. So I love bringing in the big guns. Now, what's interesting though, while I look at this product as one very potent strain, just a lot more of it, every body is different. So our Megaspore has 5 different bacteria, bacillus strains. This is just one of them, just a lot more. There is a girl that I know who did have severe autoimmune issues, very severe mold exposure. And I always thought of this guy as the big guns, but she said, HU58 is my jam. She said, ironically, all 5 of the spores in Megaspore is just a little too much for me. And this is the one that works the best for her. So, a lot of it's trial and error. You have to kind of try. The Megaspore is typically the tried and true entry point, but that's an example that every person's body is different.
And how would you know if it's too much for you?
In her case, I don't know. What we do recommend is just always going slow. So the bottle will say titrate, which means, add up slowly. So we'd start with 1 Megaspore or 1 HU50 every other day for the first week. Then you go to 1 a day, week 2, and the goal is to get to 2. And the reason being is that, again, when the environment's being cleaned up and different critters are dying off, different E. coli, parasites, whatever's in there, some people will have extra gas or loose stools or bloating. And so we just say, don't stop cold turkey because the spores are in there cleaning things up. Go down to a lesser dose, titrate down, half cap or quarter cap. And the spores have a tough outer coating, so you can put them in food or beverage, cold or warm temperatures. You can bake with them. So you can do a half cap and put it in some juice and set the other cap aside for later.
It's just the most amazing thing. I would just have to say it's like crazy cool because I know the delicacy of most probiotics, and then there's this. It's like, what? You can cook it and bake and like in my oven?
Yeah. We had a lady who put a recipe submission in the other day, and it was like green tea matcha bread that she baked with our spores.
Ooh.
I know. And you can put them in room diffusers. People put them in their neti pots. So
I've been doing that.
Yeah. The spore has a tough outer coating. It makes them very resilient. And we did research them. Our founder, Kiran, did research and found that 99.9% of our bacteria survive the heat, the shipping, and the light exposure, that many bacteria will die off in. And then he researched that almost 100% survive getting into the body. That's 98 degrees, gastric system, acids, bile, Most probiotics don't survive that.
No,
So
they
that's
don't.
the resilience of these suckers. But when you say, how would you know? I don't know in her case what she experienced,
Hmm.
but some people might just feel a little bit too bloated, or they might just, it's, whatever their detox symptom may be. Sometimes nausea, headache, fatigue comes up, but it's pretty benign. So
Okay.
whatever her experience was, she was pretty frail. She was pretty unwell for years. So however it impacted her, it might have just been a little too uncomfortable. So she
Yeah.
found that HE58 was really the ticket for her. But we just tell
Okay.
people it's very common. Don't stop cold turkey. They're in there working, cleaning. Just go down to a lesser dose and proceed. And that's when I typically add in the IgG. Because if someone's feeling bad, just like, let's neutralize those toxins, get those guys out of there.
Yeah.
Um, so this one, if I may, just to touch on, because we were talking about it, you take
Yeah.
the mucosa. Since we talk about the IgG, we do have a Megaspore Biotic. Like we said, that's the reconditioner of a healthy gut. The Mega Prebiotic, which is a fiber blend of food, is the reinforcer of feeding a healthy gut. We'll add that in second or maybe last after something like SIBO, which is very prevalent for people. It can be really reoccurring. So we add the food secondary or third or like way down the road. That's the prebiotic powder because we don't want to feed anybody until we know we clean house. So
Okay.
Megaspore gets in to clean things, ramps up good guys, then we bring the food delivery service later, is how I see that. And then the mega mucosa is the rebuilder of a healthy gut. So this one I think is also great for all the time, but especially the immune piece. And then when people are going to be indulging, it has some of those the mega IgG bovine immunoglobulins that are in the capsule, but the milligram counts a little less. So it's a little bit less here. We add amino acids and polyphenols into the mega mucosa. So that gut lining we were talking about, the mucosal gut barrier, that's a filter, it needs to be thick and velvety. This is one of the products that will come in and has some of that thickening agent to it. So you do a scoop a day. Now it does have a little organic fruit extract and stevia. For people who are just like, I can't do it. I can't do stevia. They don't like the sweetness. I would say take some IgG capsules. And then I would probably add in some of our fish oil because our fish oil can also help with rebuilding the gut lining and healthy cells and tissues. But in general, I'm a huge fan of this. And it has amino acids. It has a little bit of a bite to it. So we have to boost the flavor profile with the organic fruit extract and
Oh,
stevia because the amino acids would just not be palatable. So that's why we have a boost to it. But I do a scoop a day. And if for anybody who wants to bump the flavor, we do like a pomegranate juice here, some orange juice, a lemon spritzer, and I just do a scoop with a little bit of water. I shake it up, make it really nice and frothy, and I drink it like a nice recovery drink.
I love it.
Yeah, I like it too. So it's one of those things that there's the example of the Mexican food. Typically, we'll start with Megaspore to start to recondition someone's gut. But some people who've been on lots of medication, they've really been taxed. Their gut lining's been wrecked. They don't feel well. We may start them with some IgG capsules or the Mega Mucosa that has IgG, and do a scoop of that every day for a week or two. We see that with Crohn's patients, a lot of post-antibiotic recovery. So if your patient needs love now, let's stabilize them. Let's help them feel better. Let's gather those toxins, start to rebuild their gut. That's the example of you could do mucosa for a week or two first, and then come in and start to rebuild the gut and recondition with the Megaspore or the HE58. So that's when you and I work together. We design the protocols and say, what's just the best fit? No right or wrong, but how do we best address this for people? So
Love it.
this one I have to say, because again, rebuild the gut, heal the gut, rebuild that gut lining, and that is going to be linked to your immune system. This is going to
Yeah.
be an important one, or the IgG capsules for people on the go that just say, I just want to take capsules. They're not apples to apples, the IgG caps and mucosa, because the ingredients vary a little bit. But if you're just someone who likes a powder, rock this. And if you're on the go, take the IgG. But that's really going to help with the indulgent eating and the immune system piece and rebuilding the gut. And with the mold exposure, what we do is we do some increased dosing of IgG for shorter term, and we'll add in some of the mega mucosa. So we bump up the grams that you're taking, which you and I will, we talked a little bit about that. And we'll do that shorter term because you've been exposed to something that's causing toxicity. So we really want to get in there and gather all that stuff up and get it out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're going to feel better soon.
I know. I'm already feeling better, but I still got a minute. I can feel it. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to take a nap today. And that's what we do. We listen to our body, and gratefully I have a moment to do that today. So
yes, you have to do that.
yeah.
So we have just a few minutes. I know we want to do a giveaway. Do you want me to touch on the immune products briefly, or do you want to parlay that into another talk? What's
Um,
for you?
I just would really like to touch on Megaviron and Megamune.
Yes, because we're going
Yeah.
to do a little
Okay.
giveaway with those.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So
Okay.
we will wrap this up quickly since we were trying to do more immune focus. But again, it's really just part of the bigger picture, which is healing the gut. So it's nice to have a little bit of a recap, talk about spores, talk about the gut piece. And then I do want to mention that we actually have 3 immune products. I've got 2 here for a quick show and tell. But the first to mention is called Megasidin. I don't have a bottle here, but we do have an oral throat spray. We call it the fast actor of the 3 immune products. And it is basically a spray that you can keep on your desk or with you and do a couple pumps a day. You can take it when you're out in the world and you have to pick up the kiddos, hit the grocery store, see the in-laws, get on the airplane, boost your immune system, you spray it. And so it's packed with immune boosting herbs. It has oregano and milk thistle and lavender and tea tree oil and all of these goodies. But then we enhance it with 2 of our spores. So it's basically similar to a Biocidin. We partnered with that company. A lot of people love Biocidin, love the
it.
ladies over there. We took their amazing same spray and we enhanced it with spores.
Nice.
And the oral cavity is the gateway to the rest of our health. So we want to keep the mouth fresh and clean, but it also impacts the throat, your immune system. So you can spray the Megacidin a few times a day and swish it and rinse it and spit it out, or you can swallow it. That's the fast actor of the 3 immune products. The other one is called Megamune. I've got a bottle here, and this is what we call the daily support. So if anybody wants to go online, they can look at the ingredients. But this is 3 caps a day. I take this as my daily support to keep the immune system ramped up. It has 15 milligrams of zinc and it has some selenium. It has echinacea, it has broccoli, it has cranberry, it has green tea. So basically antioxidants and polyphenols. So I basically take this until the bottle's gone. And then I was always told take some breaks with echinacea, but I just take a break for a little bit. New shipment comes in and I get back on it. So this is our daily support. It's called Megamune. And then this one is my very favorite. And this is the Megaviron.
I love it.
Emergency supply. This is like Mega IgG 2000 right now is my current favorite product. I'm also a huge fan of that HU58 we talked about. Next time I'd love to come back if I'm welcome to talk K2, like you're taking the K2.
Yes, let's do that. That's hot.
The K2 is amazing, but this is becoming one of my very favorites because this was launched last year when the world was going crazy. The immune products came out and we call it the emergency supply. So the minute something hits you and you're like, I don't feel right, we just know that moment. Your energy is low, maybe your skin feels weird. It's some kind of bug is on board and you're like, I don't know what this is. You would take this ASAP and you take 6 capsules a day for about 2 weeks or until the bottle's gone. So it's a short-term product. You could break it up to 2 and 2. You could do 3 caps and 3 caps, but it is a beast of a product. It has 30 milligrams of zinc. We want to keep our zinc levels up. It also has turmeric. It has quercetin, which a lot of people are talking about having in the system right now. It also has tons of immune boosting herbs. So it has stinging nettle, Chinese skullcap, organic andrographis, which is basically the Asian or Indian echinacea. Yeah. It has ginseng, olive leaf. Chinese skullcap is an interesting herb. I need to learn a little bit more about it. But I trained a guy who was really big into herbs and he came to our company and was learning from me. He said, oh my gosh, Chinese skullcap. His family had COVID last year. No one's making claims here, but he's a big herbal guy. He said he took it every hour. So that was his thing. But what's interesting is you have, like we said, you have the turmeric, you have the quercetin, you have all of these immune boosting herbs and 30 milligrams of zinc. And so the minute something hits you, you take this until the bottle's gone. And it really is going to ramp that immune system, but also help with viral replication. It is really meant to be with onset of symptoms, but I did go to my sister's wedding not long ago. And first time we were all going to be around tons of people flying in from everywhere. Knock on wood, everybody's great. It's been several weeks since then. A lot of outdoor space too. But as my boyfriend and I got closer, we're taking our Megaspore to keep the gut piece in check. We're taking our IgG to neutralize toxins and a few other goodies. But we started taking it when we got there. We just thought, we don't know what we're going to bump into. We don't know what viral thing or whatever. And so, it really, really helped us. So the Megasidin is the fast actor. The Megamune is the daily support. The Megaviron or Megaviron is the emergency supply. I definitely recommend people have some of that around because it's like back in the day when you'd get sick and you're driving to the store to get your cold medicine, it's like, who wants that? You need to have it in the house. And we need to do everything we can with the world at large to make sure we're prepared. And so what we're going to do as a giveaway today, and then Brandy can explain that to you, is that I'm going to offer a Megamune and a Megaviron, and that's going to be the giveaway for people who chimed in today. And then I personally feel like if I got hit with something and I got sick, since this has 15 milligrams of zinc and this has 30 milligrams of zinc, the 45 milligrams of zinc is definitely something that's nice to ramp up. And you're getting a combination of your antioxidants and polyphenols and all these powerhouse herbs. So I would probably take these together. You don't have to, but that's something I would do.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of things. I'm going to put links to the show notes of our previous conversation that we had in case people want to access that. I'll put a link in the show notes to apply to get in the raffle for that little gift you're giving away. The other thing I'd like to say is, when you're trying to support your immune system, it's so important to have these things on board. It's so important to have your gut health in check. It's so important to, do all the things we talked about today. I also believe that it's really, really important to work with a practitioner, because there's a lot of people out there who are taking D and zinc and echinacea right now, right? And there's a lot of people who don't know that you can overdo D. And if you don't balance it with K, you could have a problem. A lot of people don't know you can overdo zinc. And if you don't balance it with copper, you could have a problem. There's so many little tiny details to know. So if you think that you're, kind of in a place where you're ready to know exactly what your personal body needs, reach out to someone, regardless if it's me or someone else, reach out. I know I'm really appreciating the labs that I've been getting from your company. So, I just want to speak to this because in the past, I've been using a different technology that was 20 years old. And it's just whatever all the labs use to learn about what is going on in the microbiome as far as pathogens and microbes. But then now Microbiome Labs comes out with this new technology where we're actually looking for the full DNA strands of these pathogens, which is not what anybody else is doing. And we can really get specific about what's in there and how to support your own body according to what your personal body needs. And I think this is the future of medicine, because everybody has problems and everybody's body is unique. And so there's no one diet, everyone who does keto is not going to have great success, right? There's just not one protocol that's going to be appropriate for every single person to get the same results. So, I'm just inviting you to consider working with a practitioner if you have, things you want to recover from or prevent, and we're here for you if you need us.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because that is true. I didn't even know that if you overdid the zinc, you could throw your copper off, right? So it's true. There's all this conversation of all of these things, and then the way that they get absorbed in the body, or making sure you don't have too high of levels, and how that it can impact you. And I appreciate that you are working with what you're talking about, our Biomfx stool test kit. That is something that's a newer endeavor for about 1.5 years. And yes, I do believe partnering up with the practitioner. I think you're phenomenal. I hope everybody works with you. But the Biomfx is phenomenal. I'm glad that you're weaving that into your business, because it's stool testing, which again, you were saying we use some of the most advanced technology on the market, which is called whole genome sequencing. So we're looking at a high def look at the gut function. I'm going to run my own Biomfx soon for the first time. And what I'm intrigued by, we look at pathogens. We look at everything from E. coli to Candida to LPS, neurotransmitters, GABA. So there's all of this amazing stuff, but we also look at the keystone species. Those are the keystone strains, the good guys. We're not just looking at pathogens and bugs and bad guys. We want to know how many of the good guys are in your system. Are they there? Some people run the Biomfx and they're non-existent, or they're in the gutter. They're so imperative. And we just launched our 3rd version of this test where we added even more keystone species. So low levels of some of those strains can be linked to a higher risk of infection or susceptibility to contracting certain things. We also have a section on that Biomfx that I'm interested in looking at. It's called the resistome. I'm very curious. I could say, like you said, I'm taking supplements. I do exercise. I need to increase that. I do okay with my sleep. There's things to improve, but I can think I'm doing a lot of the right things. And you can be taking tons of supplements and just not absorbing them because you have gut issues or whatever. But that resistome section is intriguing to me. Number one, I want to know how many keystone species are in there. Am I doing well? If they're low, I need to heal the gut more. If they're present, but they need to be fed, the prebiotic comes in to feed them. But the other piece is the resistome is, it will show you how resilient are you and how more susceptible are you to other outside pathogens and infections. So there's a whole component of that test that intrigues me personally, because I'm like, how is my gut function doing? Who's in there? But are the good guys there? Are they plentiful? And then on top of that, am I more vulnerable to the world at large just because I think I'm doing well? And that's going to
Yeah.
be pretty telling when I run my own test.
Oh, I'm excited to hear how it goes.
I know. We all of
Yeah.
all of the talk, we get to exchange all the sordid details of
Oh, I
the
know.
things in
I
life.
know.
But yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to giving away our little immune pack there. And yeah, if you have any questions, you know, you can reach out to us at any time. Again, I'll have all the links in the show notes, and we'll talk to you next time.
thank you so, so very much. I wish everyone the most amazing holidays coming up, because it is coming soon. And
Soon.
that you can, hopefully get some nice pearls from these trainings, apply these things. I think that you're a phenomenal practitioner and you're an amazing light, and you're becoming a dear friend as well. So I so appreciate, and anytime I can come back, it's truly an honor. Thank you so, so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's an honor to have you here, and we've got lots of things to talk about. So
Yes, we
I'm
do.
sure we'll see you again.
Thank you so much. Have an amazing day. Bye.
Bye.